Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So now we want to introspect and explore within ourselves. We want to know what the relationship between Allah and creation is. It wasn't any of the relations that we are aware of in the realm pertaining to our senses, at least. However, according to the tradition of Man arafa nafsa faqad arafa rabbah, we can introspect. We can look at ourselves and our soul and the relationship between this soul with the body. That's one way of trying to analyze things. Or we look at the soul, one of its faculties, for example, and see how it works. Either of these two can be used. However, that which we want to adopt in this session is a particular function of a faculty of the soul, and that is the mind. The mind is one faculty of our souls. Now, right now, we haven't even given a definition of what the soul is, and we don't want to really. And that's why I've shifted to the mind, because the mind is a term which is accepted by all, Muslim or non-Muslim. And so with this we can try to find clues. Here, when you look at your mind, and then you see that the mind is producing certain images. So if you call, for example, X is a mental picture of an apple. Okay, so now we're introspecting now, and we're in the realm of the mind, and in this realm we have a mental picture of an apple. Call that X, and Y is the mind itself. Now, here, what is the relationship between the apple, which is a mental picture of the apple? What's the relationship between this mental picture of the apple and someone's mind? So the mind is Y, X is the apple. Are they identical with one another? Well, that's a definite no. Because here, attributes that are attributed to the mental picture of the apple can't be attributed identically to the mind, or vice versa. So here, X isn't one and the same as Y. The mental picture of the apple is one thing, and the mind is another. In the second relation, can you say that the two, the mind and the mental picture of the apple, are they mutually exclusive to one another? Here too, we say no. They're not mutually exclusive to one another. Why? Because the mental picture of the apple, this picture of the apple, depends through and through, wholly, on the mind. It's a manifestation of the mind. It's a product of the mind. And this mind, okay, is present through and through the apple. Look, this mental picture of the apple is a construct of the mind. And the mind is present through and through this mental picture of the apple. And this mental picture of the apple is wholly dependent on the mind. Every bit of it, okay, every part, or through and through, existentially, it's dependent on the mind. And the mind is existentially present wholly in this apple. And therefore, this mental picture of the apple sometimes comes, sometimes goes. It all depends on the mind and what the mind is doing. It's a product of the mind. So to say they're two independent entities, that won't be the case here. So they're not mutually exclusive too. Remember, with the relationship between Allah and creation wasn't mutually exclusive either. Now what with the third relationship? Can you say the mental picture of the apple is a subset of the mind? You know, like, if you recall, Peter is a subset of the human population. A cupful of water or a wave is a subset of an ocean, for example. Here too, we say no. This does not apply here either. The mental picture of an apple is not a subset of a whole, of the mind. Because the mind can't be divided either, like the ocean, for example. And the mind didn't come into being by a number of apples, for example. It's not dependent on the mental picture of the apple. And the mind will not lessen, will not reduce if, let's say, the mental picture of the apple vanishes or is forgotten about. Like, you know, when people's memory, when they lose things in their memory, the mind is still there though. Okay, it doesn't lessen. So with these indicators, we see that the relationship between the soul or the mind and its mental pictures, this too has none of the three relations that we've discussed before. We want to see what the relationship between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and creation is. We said it's none of those three: identicalness, mutual exclusivity, or subset and set. We said because of the hadith, one who knows one's self will know one's Lord, and we want to know our Lord and His relationship with creation. But we first have to now know ourselves. And let's now see what is the relationship between ourself, which we focused on a faculty of the soul called the mind, and how the mind is in relation with the mental pictures that it produces. Look, what an important protocol this was, this prophetic hadith. And we see that the relationship between the mind and the mental pictures also, like the relationship between Allah and creation, it has none of those three. This is a good sign. This is a good sign. So let's see what this relationship then is, and then apply it to Allah and creation. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.